This video contains information on the culture and language of Cuba, as well as some strategies for teachers who have ELLs in their classrooms. Cuba is an island in the Caribbean Sea with a population of 11,061,886, with 51% of mulattoes, which is of Spanish and African descent, 31% white, 11% black, and 1% Chinese. Spanish is the official language of Cuba. There are 1.8 million Cuban immigrants in the United States, which is a 44% increase from the year 2000. The Catholic religion has not been as influential in Cuba as it has in other Latin American countries. A large number of the population follows the Santeria religion, which is a mixture of an African religion and Catholicism. The worshiping of orishas, or gods, is central, and sacrificing to the gods is also very important. Since the Castro Revolution, there has been a decline in the number who attend church because many churches are monitored by the state, and church members may face harassment. One of the most important values in the Cuban culture is family. The family is of central importance, and there is a great expectation for involvement among family members. Another value is that of interpersonal relationships. Much of Cubans' free time is spent in social activities. Cubans are very open and affectionate people, and they will usually greet others with physical touch. One of the greatest taboos is open criticism of the government and Castro. If you're in a conversation with another Cuban and you start openly criticizing, especially if they don't know you very well, they will immediately tense up and shut down, and the conversation will come to an abrupt end. Education is of utmost importance in Cuba. The Castro government initiated a campaign in 1961 to rid the country of illiteracy. The illiteracy rate dropped to 3.9%, and now only 0.2% of the population is illiterate. Education in Cuba is totally free. In primary schools, the student-to-teacher ratio is 20-1, with 100% of children enrolled through the 6th grade. Another government campaign, entitled Universalization of the University, set out to establish university campuses across the country to reach people even in the most remote places. There is at least one university and one school of medicine on every province. This has kept medical care free to the whole country. There is a limited number of opportunities after your education is complete, which has led to a lot of economic hardship for the Cubans. But Cuban immigrants are some of the most educated who come to the United States. There is a lot to consider when a student and a family of different cultural backgrounds and language become a part of your classroom. I'm first going to talk about some language aspects, particularly regarding Spanish. And two things I'm going to talk about first are some assisting factors of English and impeding factors of English that will affect your students. First, the assisting factors are the use of a Latin alphabet. There are a large number of phonetic and written cognates between the two languages. There are many similar phonemes, and they also share a similar syntactic structure in their basic sentence structure of a subject, verb, and object. The impeding factors of English that will cause some difficulty for your students are a deep orthography, which makes pronunciation and spelling rules very unreliable. The fact that adjectives come before nouns, they modify, not after. Pronouns agree with gender of the subject, not the gender of the noun. And there are no diacritical marks to indicate any change in pronunciation. There are several strategies that you can use to incorporate in your classrooms. I'm going to go over some that are really easy and you can incorporate very quickly into your lessons. The first is to use keywords and pictures to help ELLs make connections between the sound of the word and its meaning. Expose the students to words that will be useful for understanding content in other academic areas. When working on conversational skills, ask students what words they would like to learn in English, and this will generate interest that motivates the students to increase their vocabulary. Identify information that is a prerequisite for understanding the text. Assess the student's prior knowledge of these prerequisites and fill any gaps that are found. Model exemplary writing practices and demonstrate how writers write about topics that are meaningful to them. and teach grammar in the context of actual writing. And all those strategies can be found in How the ELL Brain Learns by David Salsa. We must also consider the differences in culture that our students bring to the classroom. It's really natural for some teachers to, when they have a new ELL student come to their classroom, give them a buddy who speaks the same language in order to kind of help them transition. But one thing that Sylvia Helmer and Catherine Eddy in their book Look at Me When I Talk to You caution is that while this is a good idea, care must be taken not to make inappropriate assumptions when setting up these liaisons by disregarding particulars of the students' backgrounds that may seriously affect this relationship that has been imposed upon them. So just because they speak the same language does not mean that they share the same cultural background, including their beliefs and values, which could lead to some problems between the two students and their ability to learn in that moment. One first step for teachers is that we need to understand ourselves and our culture, which affects our values and beliefs. And if, as teachers, we show students that we value their differences, then they are more likely to have motivation to succeed in our classrooms. With Cubans in particular, it's important to remember that they have a very high value for education, and many of the parents may come having a very high degree that they're received in Cuba, but there is that communication barrier because of the Spanish-English difference. But we still need to be proactive and treat them as though that they are partners in their child's education, because they do place such a high value on their children receiving a quality education. Since ELLs bring such a wide variety of cultures, experiences, and background knowledge, teachers are given a multifaceted task. And according to Sylvia Helmer and Catherine Eddy again, this task includes that we must note the differences, acknowledge their validity, create mechanisms to uncover their positive benefits, and incorporate them into our teaching as a way of building bridges among students and between students and ourselves. So if we can get to know the culture and the values, beliefs, interests, dreams, passions, language of our ELL students and families, then we'll be much more successful in reaching them and meeting their needs in our classrooms. So I hope that you have found this video interesting and helpful in some of the strategies that I've given you for reaching your Cuban students or Spanish-speaking students, or just any ELL student that you may have in your classroom.